Good evening, everybody. I am David Meller, Chair of the Tel Aviv TAU Trust, and I'm delighted to welcome you all to our 13th night at the movies and the first ever virtual at-home one. I was actually involved in the first film night we ever had in London, which was, as we said, 13 years ago, which took place at the Curzon Cinema in Mayfair. I hope this time you're feeling all relaxed at home. We thank you for supporting this event. Feel free to reach out to our team at TAU Trust if you require more information or would like to get more involved. Over the years, we've had the unique experience to enter the creative minds of many of Tel Aviv University's award-winning film and television writers and directors from the Steve Tisch School of Film and Television. Tonight, we will have the opportunity to hear firsthand from 3 talented students and recent graduates of this prestigious school who took us on a film journey and created memorable and meaningful films for us to discuss. Later on, towards the end of the talk, you will hear more about the school from Professor Mikhail Aviyad, who will tell you why Israel is a global leader in the film and television industry and why TAU have developed such amazing talent. Before we do that, I now have great pleasure to welcome Dan Patterson, my good friend, Olivier-nominated playwright, writer, producer, and creator of the British and American incarnation of the improvisation show Whose Line Is It Anyway? And the British satirical panel show Mock the Week. In 2013, Dan co-wrote the play The Duck House, a farcical political satire. Dan will lead the Q&A of the films we have all seen. Dan, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. And over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, David, who's still the best warm-up man in the business, I have to say. He's brilliant.
Cheapest.
Can I say it's an absolute privilege to be here too. I've been attached to this event since it started, since Gary Sussman broke my arm to make me do it. And I have to say, I've never regretted it. I think the Tel Aviv University Film Department is extraordinary. I think the people that have graduated from it are amazing, and I think the films are unparalleled. Just to let you know, I was a student filmmaker many, many years ago, and you only have to look at these films to realize how good they are from the point of view of how good the actors are, in terms of the direction, in terms of the writing, in terms of the production, in terms of sound. All the things that very often in student films are not top-notch are absolutely marvelous in this. So it's a real privilege to be doing it. What I thought I would do, so everybody knows, we're assuming that everybody has seen the films. So we will be talking in depth about them, and we'll go through them in turn for about 10 minutes, and then we'll have all the people together. So we're going to start with Atara Frisch, who made The Love Letter. So Atara, welcome.
Hi everyone.
I have to say this film is amazing. It's brilliantly performed and written, and what I loved about it was how ambiguous it was. Well, at least I thought it was. I may just be stupid, but it just felt to me all the way through that you didn't go for easy answers. We kept being surprised and going, is this real, is it not? Now, is that a deliberate thing on your part to keep it that ambiguous?
Yes, I did want. I didn't want a specific answer to be answered in the end of the film. I wanted people to go out with the question: was it real or not? Did she mention it or not? And I have different answers from different type of audience, and I love it.
And is
what
there a
did
real
you think, Dan?
Well, it's really I couldn't tell there. I watched it twice. The first time I thought it wasn't real, and the second time I thought it was real. And I guess that's a tribute to you and your skill that we can all do it. But for us in the diaspora, we're not used to, well, I can speak for myself, I'm not used to seeing women soldiers. So it's very interesting to see a film set in that setting. Is that quite realistic? Forgetting the fictional part you put in, but is it quite realistic in terms of how that's set up? Did you go through a unit and were you in one like that?
Yes, yes. It's actually based on my experiences in the army. I served for 5 years. Uh, the mandatory is 2 years. I stayed 5. I was an officer, a commander in a rookie's base. Um, and it's all on, and I'm writing about my memories from this unique, special, weird but charming little place of being a rookie's commander.
So the commander woman in the film, that was kind of the position you held. You are, I'm not saying it's autobiographical, but that is you. You were at that level.
Yes, I was in that level, exactly.
And is it autobiographical?
It's not autobiographical, but as one that served 5 years, I've experienced so many different occasions and situations involving emotional feelings inside this really strict and disciplined world. And I felt it's a very interesting line to portray between the really strict worlds into the emotional world, especially when they're all women in this really manly parts.
Yeah, and I mean, my first reaction when it first starts and everybody's sort of answering, it together, is how terrible I would be in that environment. That I just, it's just so weird to see people having to do it. But the second thing that struck me is how young everybody is, both the rookies and the commanders. I don't know how old that commander is, and I don't know how old you were, but seemed to me it was kind of early 20s or mid 20s, and you're in charge of all these other people.
Yes, yes. When I think about it now, from like 10 years later, it's crazy. It's crazy being in this part, being in charge of so many young girls my age, and that's also the conflicts comes from there, because you're still a child and you're still searching who you are and your identical how do you say it, migdal, how do you say identical
twins?
No, I mean who you are as a woman, who you attract to. You're attracted to man, or you're still searching who you are, but you need just to be so tough and to be so focused, and but inside you're still a child, and if someone tells you they care for you, something motivate you inside, but you still have to be so tough. And I think it's really interesting, this thin line.
Well, also, I mean, look, do you think that the Israeli army in Israel, this was a question that was asked to us, it was said, do you think the army and the Israeli society are open to gay relationships?
More and more, I think, in these days. I think my generation is very open to these experiences, and even also now the 20-year-old, I think they're all surrounded by this. I think yes. I think it's not like it used to be. But if you ask me, it's not a film about gay relationship. I know it's weird to say it.
No. Well, one of the things that I thought was so interesting to me in it was when the commander makes Shimrit ring her boyfriend. That felt to me like it was a loving relationship. It didn't feel, it felt, so when she says immediately hang up, there's that feeling of oh God, I've suddenly got into the way of something real. And so I agree with you. I didn't think it was about gay relationships at all. I thought it was just about relationships among people in a very unique setting, in a very sort of extreme, tense setting where different people have different power.
Exactly, because they're all women there. So naturally emotions come up, and when you are a rookie and you have a commander, it's really common that you fall in love with him, when you fall in love with it, if it's a girl or if it's a boy. Something about the sorry, sometimes my English, Mamadot, how do you say it? Well, anyhow, when you have a commander and you're a rookie, it's really common that you fall in love with him because you admire him, because it's also tense. And so yes, it's just happening there because they're all women there. But I think it could have happened also with men on.
Well,
towards.
It's interesting because my wife and daughter watched the film, and they said that this film could have been made in a male unit, and there could have been sort of the gay, not gay thing going on, and it would have been very different. So
Very
what do you think this says about women in particular in this sort of situation?
I think when women enters this male world of army, that it's all based and it's always built in really manly way. I think this makes an odd. It's an odd thing to put women in such a men environment. And I don't know how it affects women, but I know when you're putting women's all together, so emotions come up maybe more easily than in all manly world.
Okay, now the Love Letter has been bought by HBO Europe, and am I right in you're doing a series based on this? So
yes.
Can you tell us how is this the basis for it, and we continue it, or is it a brand new start and start again?
So I would first want to mention that the Love Letter is part of a bigger project. It's called the Harrowing Project, and the Harrowing Project is a full-length feature film comprising 5 short films written and directed by 5 women. I'm just one of them. And the Harrowing Project was also was made by the university, and this is my graduate project. It was created and artistically directed by Mikhail Aviyad and Maya Dreyfus, that they are both really acclaimed directors in Israel. And it's my film in particular did get a lot of attention and success, but I couldn't make it without the university support and the home and the house that they've given me. And yes, amazing things have happened to me thanks to this movie. I think this movie touches people in a way that I could have not imagined. It got lots of special prizes, and I screened in Tribeca Film Festival in New York, and I got just a special mention there, and in the Jerusalem Film Festival, and also it's been bought by HBO, and everything happens with this film is amazing. But the most wonderful thing is that I've just 2 days ago finished to direct my first TV series based on the Love Letter, where my main character in the Love Letter, Noah, is also the main character in the TV series, and and also the other character, Shimrit, is also there in the TV series. So it was really a amazing starting point.
And but you recast it, did you?
I did. I recast it because I filmed this film so many years ago, and it wasn't real. The ages of the actors was not relevant anymore. As you said,
Absolutely.
they're 20s.
And was are they based though on characters that you knew? Like, was there someone like Shimrit there? Was there someone like the sergeant who's very tough? And I mean, was there a reality there?
Yes, I've seen so many characters in these 5 years I've served in the army. I've seen characters that are very easily been commanders, and I've seen characters that have been given to be a commander, but have no skills to be a commander and to to be in this situation. And I think Noah, is the main character, is not really skilled to be there. Yes, she's very tough, and yes, she knows the rules really good, but she doesn't really know how to deal with this situations happening to her. She's making her call her boyfriend. This is out of the rules in any way. So and it's happening because she's young and she's not really a leading type. I don't believe she's ever lead anything in her life before that. And the army does that a lot. I mean, people get all the titles, but it's not always they're not always the one that's supposed to be there.
And do you think she's lonely?
Do I think she's lonely?
Yeah.
I think she's terrified. And when somebody, for the first time in her life, somebody think of her as loved, as something to love, I don't think she's ever seen herself as one like this. And that's when I think that it doesn't really matter if it was written by a woman or it was written by a boy, it would make the same effect on her, because she's not even thinking about herself as one that is deserved to be loved like this. So when it happens, it's just like it's breaking all the rules. Everything is like falling apart.
Absolutely. All right, Ataha, if we might leave that one there, but we will join you again in 20 minutes and we'll talk generally with the group. But thank you. As I said, I think it's stunning. Congratulations on your success with it. And I'm sure you're going to go on and have a stellar career in all of this stuff, but it's beautifully done. So Mazal Tov on that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so we're going to move on to Ziv Hermelin, who did a film called No Bad Endings. Ziv, welcome. Lovely to meet you too.
Good evening, Dan. How are you?
Fine, fine. Well, again, this is just a marvelous film. It's so nuanced. It's such an interesting area. So I'm full of questions again. I want to ask, though, again, like I asked Ataha, is this slightly autobiographical? Are you from a kibbutz? You were in a place where this sort of thing went on a lot?
Yeah, me and my partner, who's also Sigal, who also written the script, we grew up in a kibbutz. If anybody doesn't know, kibbutz is like a small village when everybody knows everyone. And in a kibbutz, you can see that everybody has his specific part. So when you need to organize a ceremony, so each one has his own part of making it happen, and it's a huge scandal if it goes wrong. So we know it by heart, but we never seen a ceremony falling apart to our eyes like it's happening in the movie.
Well, look, I understand that you're a stand-up comedian. You do comedy too. Not stand-up, but you do comedy, yes?
I'm writing comedy, but I think I'm not funny enough to do it.
Oh no, but there was definitely, it felt to me there was a comedy strand in it when the guy was saying the fireworks and he said, "Do I even get the big red one?" It just felt that was from a comedic mind, but it's a very sensitive area. And I'm interested, one of the questions we got was, was this an area you were worried to walk into? Because it's really on the cusp. I know Mel Brooks did Springtime for Hitler, but you're actually dealing with the Holocaust. I mean, it goes in a step further. Were you worried about doing this? There is a vein of comedy in it.
I think my psychologist said it better. She said, you're not joking at the Holocaust, you're joking at the absurdity of trying to remember it nationally. When you need to, every year, to make a huge ceremony in each place, in each school in Israel, and you expect all the people to be sad and respectful, it's becoming like a bureaucracy of remembering. It's not really to find your unique personal way to remember the Holocaust. My grandparents are survivors, and they thought that it's moving, but it's not offensive, because again, the Holocaust isn't a funny thing that happened, it's a huge tragedy. But the way that we remember it in Israel, if you're going every year to ceremonies in your city and in your school, it's becoming kind of a performance, you know? You need to be respectful, and after 15, 20, 50 years, you're not attached to it anymore. So that was the kind of comedy we're trying to do, but we're not trying to make our laugh at the Holocaust.
No, I completely agree. I wasn't insinuating that you are. No, I thought it was a fine line and you stayed on the right side of it. But is the, it just seems to me that, is this a generational thing, that people of your generation are looking at it and looking at the ceremony and looking at the wanting to hold on to these memories in a slightly different way to how it might have been the case 30 or 40 years ago?
Of course it does, because when you have a new generation, it's less attached, and you need to find new ways to make it attached. And because ceremonies became kind of, to my opinion, bureaucracy, so we get less attached. But I don't think it's a problem of my generation or the next generation specifically. I think because in Israel, a lot of time we treat the Holocaust survivors as the survivors, as a symbol, and not as human beings. So we get less attached to it, and we're doing it formally. So it's not a problem of my generation, it's a problem of policy. You know, in Israel, we have one day that we're remembering the Holocaust, and the rest of the year, we don't look at it at all. So I think the movie is trying to show that you have to look at new ways to bring the new generation in it, because all the ways doesn't do it enough.
Well, I did think one of the things that really appealed to me was, we over here, I go to the Holocaust Education Trust every year, and we do a lot of stuff, and the survivors all have their stories. And I thought, what a great way to deal with stories, and have somebody who works in a library and works in children's books and deals with stories. And I thought it was really interesting the way that she wanted, happy ending to these things, or certainly not bad endings to these things. You got Ruth Geller, who is in Stiesel, right?
Yes,
and she's wonderful. How did you manage to get her?
Oh, it's a cool story. I asked a friend of mine that's also learning with me in school, Lenny, and her father gave us a list of good actresses, adult actresses, and he said, just make a phone call to Ruth Geller. She is the best, and you would love to work with her. So I did it. I was scared because she's a great actress, and she was so nice and warming, and she just told me, I live 5 minutes from the university, just come to my house tomorrow. So I came to her house. I was excited really much, and she wrote a script. She gave me notes. She told me that her monologue is supposed to be more punchy and not just moving, and I said, okay, Ruth Geller, I come back in a week. And we rewrote it, and it actually got really better. I really liked the movie version of it, and she went with us, and she came to play, and we filmed in the north of Israel, 5 hours driving, and she did it, and she's 94. It's amazing.
I think she's great. And what was nice was that in Stiesel, she plays kind of a miserable character. And in this one, although she was demanding, I thought she was so human. And actually, as you understand the reason why she doesn't want to take part, you warm to her, and you warm to that experience, and you warm to going, I'm not a commodity, I'm a person, and stop using me as a commodity, which, I thought was very sensitively acted and very sensitively written. The guy who, the person who sort of is the senile one, is that based on a real thing? Did you ever see anybody start saying that they danced with Mengele and this sort of thing?
The specific kind, no, but actually it's supposed to be a lady, not a guy, and we didn't manage to find on time an old actress who would like to say that she danced with Mengele. And then the photographer, Ofek, and me told, what if it's going to be a guy that has an homosexual affair with Mengele? And Albert Cohen, who played Albert, said, yes, of course, I'll be right there. And it was really, really easy to get it. But in every kibbutz, in every community, you have this kind of person, because we grew up together, you always have the old fellows, and some of them have a creational ideas about living.
Well, it's true. Look, I don't want to make this about me, but there was a period when I was on kibbutz in 1978 on Beta Emek, and there was a very unprepossessing guy and he was on his own, and nobody seemed to really like him, and he was not well kept and whatever, and he used to eat incredibly quickly. And I once asked somebody and said, why did he eat so fast? And he said, because he was in Auschwitz and they were giving them 10 seconds to eat, and what you didn't eat in 10 seconds was taken away. And it suddenly makes you look at these people in a very different way. And your experience of growing up with these people and with people who've gone through this, I think allowed you, in my opinion, to make it very, very sensitively. And again, beautifully done. Can I just ask last question before we move on, and we will come back to you, but with the Hatikva at the end, so you're sort of coming back down to land with Hatikva. What was your intention with that? As a writer, what were you saying with that?
Actually, in the beginning, it was just like, okay, it's the end of the ceremony, we need a Hatikva. And then we started to think, but every character has a different place when she's ending. You have the children, the young generation that are having Carmela's point of view. We're having the Ayelet, the mother that is furious, and you have Carmela who got for the first time maybe what she wanted. And we thought that actually to use a tikva in a not cynical way to bring hope is the bravest thing that we are as film students who are supposed to be rebel can do, actually to mean our national anthem without cynicism. So and it was scary, but when we screened it for the first time, we understood we got it right, I think.
Yeah, I think you did. And is it an ambition of yours to do the fireworks on Yom Ha'atzmaut and to particularly do the red one? Is that you? Is that from your experience?
It's based off a friend of my class who actually did it and burned half of the village 10 years ago.
All right. Well, look, thank you again. Wonderful film. A privilege to have you here. And we'll return to you after we've spoken now to Adi Mishnayot, who did Image of Victory. So Adi, if you are there, lovely to meet you again. Well, not meet you again, I mean meet you again with all the other people. But again, a terrific film. Can I just ask, there's a number of questions, and I think we had more questions sent in on this one than on any of the other ones. But was the, how did this come about? You didn't know your brother was going to get injured. So what was your intention when you started making this film?
No, God forbid, I didn't know. And I think every Israeli knows that at time, first of all, hi everyone, I'm excited to be here. So when there is a war, I think the last thing you want to do is document anything, because you just wish it will pass by and you can forget about it. And what happened is actually when we got this word, which is both very, it's like it's the worst news and it's the best news, because he was only injured. It could have gone much worse than that, but he is hurt, and we didn't know the damage when we first went there. So it's actually kind of the feeling that you're suddenly entering a film as a character. Just being there was so surreal, and realizing that this war that outside of the war zone around Gaza Strip, you only see in the news, suddenly you are drawn into that. But when we got there, I kind of realized that we were in a different genre film than I thought. I thought I was going to go inside to this like very dark family drama, and then I kind of got to the hospital and realized it's kind of like a different genre film with all the people around.
It's brilliantly put together, but I just want to stay on that though, that you empathize with these things and you say, God, I would just be so terrified to be in that situation. And then I realized that you're there, not only there, but you've got a camera. You're wandering around with a camera. Were you terrified?
Yeah, so I think I brought the camera. It's like, I'm a film student, so this is what I do. This was my kind of defense mechanism, maybe. I just brought the camera with me as a sort of way to experience that reality that was there. And maybe also as a way to kind of have a common experience, to be there with my brother, because we had to spend hours on hours just being there, and you can't really help him with his rehabilitation process. So for me, that was maybe the most natural thing to do. And also I think that in a way there were cameras pointed at us the whole time. We were kind of like the main event, or my brother Uri was.
but when you were in Gaza, were they okay with you filming that? I mean, that must be very
okay. So I'll tell you the story about the war zone materials is a very good story. So obviously, again, myself, I wasn't, of course, a combat soldier, and I wasn't a soldier anymore at the time. This is my younger brother, and again, I never expected for him to get hurt. After he was already wounded and in the hospital, and we were there with him, we discovered that one of his soldiers had documented the whole thing, including the moment of injury. So it was actually one of his soldiers that was in combat with him. And we first got the material from him, and then we had to go through the Israeli censorship in the army to get permission to exhibit those materials.
Okay. And then once you're in the hospital, now this is fascinating, because one of the things, the sort of lines that it says about your film is that, you know, it's a slightly cynical way that the whole thing is used during the hospital thing. But again, as an outsider, I'm looking at it going, it seems kind of incredible that there is all this stuff that goes on. It's almost like, and I don't use this word flippantly, but it's like an industry of the way that people, your brother having gone through this terrible thing, but you get the other people turning up with their own injuries, and then you get the music stuff and the entertainment, then you get the religious people, then you get the money, then you get, Bar Raffaelli, you know, you get all these things going on. What is your intention in telling this story? I know your documentary, you're allowing it to speak for itself, which I think is great, but what is your intention in this?
So, again, first of all, I think it was kind of a way for me to tell our side of the story, because we felt like my brother had become this hero, this like national exemplar of how the war is just, and like a symbol for our unity and for the very like brotherly like Israeli spirit. And in a way, I really wanted to point the camera and say, okay, but as you said, this is an industry. This does have a price. And sometimes and again, it was very important for us to keep it ambivalent. As you said, like sometimes we were moved too by these gestures. We laughed with them too. We were happy with them too. But I think it's just like looking at this that unites us, and this really extraordinary Israeli spirit that maybe also has this dark side of allowing us to accept war as something that is unchangeable and is like the natural state of things.
Well, you do have in it, I think it's your father expressing, he says, I don't want to be part of this country the way it's going forward. And you also have people singing Shir LaShalom. And it seems to me you've got those two and it's, you know, your mother is crying at the end during Shir LaShalom, but that's kind of where you leave us. Very near that. So I thought it was just interesting the different ways you portrayed that. Can I ask though, one of the questions we had said, was it hard creating a film about your brother? Did it prevent you from being judgmental towards it? And was it a plus or a minus that it was your brother?
So the film probably wouldn't have happened if it wasn't my brother. This is the kind of documentaries that it's not like I decided to do a movie about this topic, research it, and so on. So first of all, this is the only way that this kind of movie could have happened. And I think that generally, I had this rule with my brother that I decided I think every documentary filmmaker makes his own decision, like how much to push the camera in front of his characters and what are the codes between you. And with my family, it was very clear that if there was a moment where they say, I can't do this right now, I did turn off the camera. And I was willing to take that price. I think that kind of trust between us is what really allowed him to like not ask any questions about the film and really just come to see it when it was ready, because there was this.
What did your brother think of it at the end of it?
I think that we were a little nervous at first, but I think even like our premiere screening was at the Tel Aviv International Student Film Festival, which is by the way, another like great and wonderful initiative of TAU University. And I think just for my family, it wasn't the first time they saw it, but just to see it with 300 people around them that were laughing and crying with them really made them see it from the audience point of view. And I think they really loved that because they felt like it tells their story way beyond like the reality events that actually happened to them.
And how is your brother doing now, out of interest?
So my brother, it's maybe important to note that his injury was actually declared like a mild injury. So just something to give you to think about, like, what does that mean about other people being wounded? He's doing great, actually. His rehabilitation went extremely well, considering. It will never come back to exactly the way it was, but if you see him walking down the street, you probably wouldn't be able to even guess that he had this injury. And he's also a student at TAU, by the way. So
okay, is he going to do a documentary about you?
Oh no, he's studying like philosophy and economics. But
and I also thought it was interesting, Adi, that you had Bar Raffaeli there, because I've read about that, and she was doing these visits as a kind of, was it, I mean, I may be speaking out of turn, but it seemed to me that there was this threat that the Fox, her modeling agency, would be boycotted unless she came along and visited people, and because she hadn't done army service herself. And I mean, is that right? Is this a very sort of weird kind of thing for you that she turned up, or do you think it's a great thing that she turns up and does this?
So I don't think I would speak about Bar Raffaeli maybe so specifically, but definitely anybody who remembers that 2014 war knows that there was a very strong discourse in the public to almost boycott any celebrity or any organization that were not aligned behind this war. And I did not hear specifically about Fox, but definitely, and even he says it in the film, that people were ranting on her on Instagram. And I think that it was very much felt in that war, like how much was expected of everyone to show their support. And I think you can see it also there.
And by the way, I want to say I only got that off Wikipedia, so I'm not vouching for that. It could be, you know, it's alleged, and it may not be anything that actually happened in that. But I just thought it was interesting that she was in there, and you really got all the, and the crowd, you know, the people who brought the money, and your brother laughing that this is the people who bring money, and it's, everything seems to be double-edged within it, which is what I thought you got so beautifully in the film. That yes, somebody's got a good intention, but then they go, what does this mean that you come along to an injured soldier and give them $150? What is that saying? And I love the fact that you just allowed, I guess, all these things to happen on their own terms and allowed us to judge it.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, was one of the reasons why we decided, for example, to avoid any form of like traditional documentary storytelling, like voiceover, which is something very common, and we really wanted to avoid that because we felt the narration will just like take the ambivalent part out of it. We really wanted to let you experience it from the sister of a wounded soldier, for example.
And do you think you have been very affected by it?
By the film? Or
by the film,
war?
or by the experience of making a film about this? It's not just making any old film, it's a very personal thing.
Yeah, it was definitely a journey for me. I think one of the dilemmas when making the film, first of all, it took me a long time to have the courage to face these materials again. And then you have to consider that, like, while I was still watching or in the hospital, he was already like moving on with his life and kind of trying to forget it as a family. So I think it's a real dilemma, but I really felt, especially like a year after, you know, when all the news broadcasts are talking about Operation Protective Edge and presenting it in a very like kind of one color or like in a very particular way, which really made me feel like I have to tell our story. Like, I can't let go of this experience and not show people what it looks like from the inside. So that was a big motivation.
Okay, so thank you, Adi. That's great. What I'd love to do now, if we could just open it up to Atara, Ziv, and yourself, and ask a few more general questions. And one thing that I do think, given the platform we're talking about tonight, is what does the Tel Aviv Film School give you in terms of a platform? Any one of you three, in terms of, you know, the experience of making films in this environment, how they're so good, the funding. You know, these are not cheaply made. I mean, they might be, but they don't look like they are. So what is this department? How is it so special? What is the platform it gives you? Adi, do you want to start that?
Sure, I'll start, yeah. So I think there is so many things, but just to name, I think, a few main ones. I think that first, there is a huge sense of freedom in the way that they conduct our studies. And it's so much so that if you will ask, I think, Israeli filmmakers, sometimes when you see a student film, you kind of know already what school it belongs to. And I think that with Tel University is the place where the films are most like, have a variety and are like so different from each other, both in form and in the stories. And I think that freedom is felt like all through the writing process, all through the production process. I think like the facilities and the sense of like having your back is huge. And also for me, I got a lot of support for the post-production process from the Balvetnik Fund for student production, which is crucial when you're a young person. Like, you want to finish your film, and you mentioned like you want the music done, you want it to be like a full realized film. So facilities are everything. And I will let them say more things, but also for me, like, strangely, I think the academic side for me is actually something that I found like much more meaningful than I thought it would be. I think in the university, really, you can really like know your film history, and you can really like look up to greats, and that is really gives you something that you don't have in many other film schools in Israel.
Okay, Atara?
I really agree with everything Adi said. I think the freedom is is the most important thing in the university. I think it's the base. It gives you as an artist the freedom to largely fail or largely succeed in everything you do, and you also have lots of types of moderators. I think during my studies, I went through lots of people guiding me until I found, I think, the two that really saw something above me and helped me delivered it in the best way. I mentioned them before, I will mention them again. Mikhail Aviyad and my drive was there. The reason I think I'm a director now, because they saw something about me and they didn't let go. Even when I wrote a script not that good, and they said, okay, I see something there, but it's not really that. Maybe search for something else. And they really helped me to bring my voice out loud. And the Heroine Project, it's also donated by Mira Hammermesh, and she was a known filmmaker and an artist and a feminist, a passionate feminist, and she also gave us a donation to the Heroine Project, and it's the only reason we did these films, and we did it this good. And the university for me is a home. I still feel them, everyone there, in my heart, and I appreciate everything they gave me. I think it's really large part of who I am today.
And Ziv?
Well, I agree with everything that Adi and Atara says. I'm thankful for the university for this opportunity, and specifically with the freedom stuff, which is totally right. I have to say that my professors also remembered that I am a human being, and they were caring and looking up for me when we finished the first draft of No Bad Endings, and I was afraid to go to shoot it. My professor, Eitan Green, which is also a great and known Israeli director, came to me and said, "You have to do it. I told you I believe in it. It's supposed to be enough. Just go and do it." They gave motivation, and they know that as filmmakers, we are full of anxieties and we're self-concentrated, and we need the push. And they bring it from the art perspective and also from the human being perspective. And I personally really care about both of them. So I think that the university gave us a lot of confidence as who we are as filmmakers. And I think that was marvelous contribution for us.
Well, it's also interesting, again, as an outsider looking at this, that when I was growing up, there were a few Israeli films, but not a lot of Israeli films. Now there's an explosion, both in terms of actual films, but also in television. You know, one of the places where people light up in the diaspora, well, not Jews, but non-Jewish community, is Israeli formats. There are so many things that have come out of Israel. Is this, do you think, because you can make films cheaper now, and therefore it's that sort of thing that allows you to do it? Or is it the sort of how vibrant a society Israel is and the problems of it? You know, we see, I don't think if you were going to a student film showing in London or even in LA, you might get political stuff. I doubt you would get army stuff. I'm sure you wouldn't get Holocaust stuff. And is it because it's, as I said, it's such an interesting society. People have things to say and they want to say them, and there are these stories in the Jewish soul. What's your opinion on that very long, convoluted question? Ziv, do you want to start?
Okay, I love that. I think that the Israeli cinema, in the point of writing and directing, was also amazing in the 60s and 70s, but due to the last 2 decades, the technical, the way to make movies, like you said, cheaper, brought a lot of talents in, because, you know, in Israel in the 90s, we didn't have the cinema law, so we had a very short list of creators who did made to film. And now, because you have it in cheaper aspects, you can see how many talents they have. Of course, because it's a crowded place and we are all very wants to succeed, so you have a lot of voices, but I think the talent was here from the beginning.
Adi?
So I think, I mean, you know, the technical aspect is something that is happening all around the world. I kind of feel like Israelis just like to kind of juggle their way through hardships and kind of know how to play it rough. So it's actually like kind of despite the financial state, because still our films, you can't compare it to a UK budget or to certainly not to an American budget. And this is a problem actually, but I think that just Israelis have this thing of managing against the rules and kind of like without the proper facilities. So that is one. And I think also like there is a lot of very complicated stuff going on here. So there is a lot to tell, I think. There are a lot of different voices because there are a lot of stories. And I think a lot of global issues that are now rose to prominence have been kind of already happened in Israel before, like immigration issues, a lot of political things that are now really catching up in the global sphere and in the cultural sphere have been here before. So maybe that's a little bit why.
Okay, thank you. And Ataha?
I agree with both of them. Nothing to add.
Okay. What, for the three of you, is the hardest thing about directing? Just very quickly, in a nutshell, you're all terrific directors, also terrific writers. What is the single hardest thing that you find when you go out there to do a film?
I'll start. it's really fresh for me because I've just finished filming a 2-month TV series. I think the most hard thing about being director is always remember to listen to yourself. There's a lot of voices out there, and there's a lot of voices besides you when you're directing, and everyone has an opinion, except like especially in Israel. And the most important thing that I always try to remember, and when I'm not listening to it, I fail, is when I'm not listening to my guts. And I think my guts knows better than everything. Then even my guts knows better than my mind. Then if I'm feeling in my stomach something is not working, I'm always trying to let all the pressure outside and the time that is and the money issues just put aside, and just listen to what's not working inside. And it's hard sometimes. It's really hard sometimes.
I tell you, it's interesting you said that, because Billy Wilder said, "Trust your own instinct. Your mistakes might as well be your own instead of someone else's." So that's good footsteps to be walking in. Okay.
Thank you.
Ziv?
I think, I don't know if it's the hardest thing, but it's the most important for me, and it's similar a little bit to what Atara said, and it's listen to others. I think that when I direct, director's supposed to tell everybody what to do, but actually when I listen to my crew and I don't just want them to get my thing done, I get much more. So it's the most hard thing for me is not just being concentrating in myself, but to listen to all the smart minds that I have near to me.
Okay, terrific. And Adi?
So I agree with both, and I think I'll just like close it up to what the first thing is, that I think it's so much about finding the people who will believe with you in the project and go along with you. Like for me, I met with over 12 editors for the film. And like Atara said, it's really hard. It's really easy to listen to all the people that tell you, like for my film, because it was the whole family, like you don't have really a hero, I'm not sure who it is, or all kinds of problems that on paper, it's really easy always to say what the problems are, but not necessarily people know how to solve them. And I think picking the people that they just see your vision with you, and they can believe that this could be done, is like what ties up the knot. And then you can actually listen to them, because sometimes people look at the thing and they're like, oh, okay, but they see a different film. You need to find the people that see what your film is. So
okay. And final question. For me, a film that I would love to have made other than Airplane would have been It's a Wonderful Life by Frank Capra. What is a non-Israeli film that you would love to have made? And is there a director that you particularly admire that you would like to emulate?
Wow.
This is the most blackouting question that
Yes.
I can just start off just really because it's the first thing that popped to my mind, but like any of Leo Carac's films.
Okay.
Very, very outside of the documentary area, but he's like a French director that has like these so far out, wonderful, colorful dramas.
Terrific. Okay. Atara?
Well, I just look up to so many people. So I think Paul Thomas Anderson is the one that I look up to the most. Everything from his framing, script, ideas, different films he's directed, characters he's building, camera movements, everything is really mind-blowing.
Okay. And Ziv?
Okay. Mary Poppins is amazing.
I agree with you. I do agree. I do agree. Okay. We had a few questions coming in, but we've run out of time. But look, it's been an absolute privilege and pleasure talking to you, watching your wonderful films. I'm sure everybody here feels the same. And I'm sure I speak for everybody in wishing you huge success in the future and with your future films and in your careers. And I'd like to hand over now to Mikhail Aviyad, who's director, scriptwriter, producer, and senior lecturer at the Department of Cinema and Television at Tel Aviv University, who is sort of an overview of all of this and has quite a lot, I think, as we can tell tonight, to be very proud of. So Mikhail, let me hand over to you.
Hi, hello. It's interesting for me to be here on behalf of Tel Aviv University, the Steve Tisch School, in which I teach already, what should I say, over 25 years, I think. All these years I'm making films. I'm a film director, both documentaries and fiction, and the university lecturer. And I feel that I learn from my students every year, new things and a lot. Now, our film school is really big. It receives about 800 students each year. This year, because of COVID-19, we have even more than usual. I guess students didn't go abroad, they don't have work, so, you know, what the heck, they go to study. We have, the school exists since 1972, and it's the only school in Israel that combines academic studies and production. And I think it's the best film school in Israel. It's also one of the, according at least to the Hollywood Reporter of 3 years ago, it's one of the 15 best film schools in the world. So that's nice. We produce about 120 films, short films each year. And those films travel in about 200 festivals each year. Our professors are the best filmmakers in Israel. Not included. Many of our graduates are actually running the Israel film industry. Ari Forman was with Bashir, Gideon Raff with Homeland, Hagai Levy with the treatment. I'm just mentioning TV and films you might have heard of, but our graduates really made and make many of the decisions and the films that exist in Israel. And we are, lucky enough to be their teachers. So, and a lot of it, of course, has to do with our contributions and the support we get from all over the world, including the UK, which is, without it, there is no way we could continue and be such a successful, overworked film school. So that's more or less what I have to say. And I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight and for watching these 3 wonderful films and talking to these 3 graduates. As I mentioned, these are 3 of the 120 films that we produce every year. Many of them are very good. And I guess that's it, Dan, unless you want to ask me anything.
I suppose I would just ask, people are probably getting ready to go, but everyone sort of contributed by being part of this, but presumably there is a way that people can donate if they think this is an important, which I do, a very important and very successful school. Do you have any ideas for them on how people can do this?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you do it technically, but what I do know that there is no way that we can produce our films without your support. I mean, students pay for tuition, but a film school costs much more than a degree in literature or in sociology or in mathematics. And therefore, there is, the university doesn't pay for all this. So university pays only for the academic curriculum. And we have to basically depend on support from contributors for the productions that we are, we're involved in. And all is done for very low budget. Of course, nobody gets paid. I mean, not the students, not the actors, nothing. And still, making films cost money. And therefore, we need your support.
And Kara Case, who's the organizer of this in this country, has said that details of how people can contribute will be emailed to people, so we can all help. But Mikhail, thank you for that. You do a wonderful job, and I've watched this over many years, and I'm, as I said, staggered by the quality of your film, the films that you put out, and the quality of the people that make them. And I have to say, any place that has a graduate who says that Mary Poppins is their #1 film is good in my book. So with that, I would just like to thank everybody. I think it's for me to say goodbye. I don't think there's anything else coming up. So thank you to all of the people in Israel. I hope you get over the COVID thing soon. I hope we do here too. And thanks for everybody who came onto this call, and for all the wonderful people, Kara and David and her team and all the technical people who have sorted this out today. So I wish you huge success in the future, and also success in the short term, getting out of this terrible position we're all in. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.